Now they can hear what we're saying. All the shit talking.
Dude, I'm pretty good at that. But I don't know you like that, so I can't just like start
one way you can know.
That's a good question. There should be a sticker. Is this 18 plus?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have somebody just FYI, you need to watch that.
All right, welcome to round number one here at Modern Mondays in Portland, Oregon. We're hanging out at Guardian Games, and we have a matchup for you of...
Yeah, it was more of a joke.
Beeps and bleeps here or there, maybe.
Yeah, maybe for the
Andrew
YouTube
Lockhart on Mono Black Coffers and Nate Cat on 4-Color Creativity.
So, Travis, who do you like in
Don't
this
beat me up too
matchup?
bad. This is a homebrew.
Well, I feel like depending on what Andrew's build of coffers is, this is kind of like Black Tron. So you could sort of ask yourself, like, does Tron have a good matchup against creativity? And I think it's probably, you know, pretty even there, because there's going to be some board wipes. I know Andrew's playing like Damnations in the deck. There's going to be some really good like value engines like Golos. So it's a little bit slower probably to get going than Tron will be. But there also like there's options of like hand disruption and cards that Tron doesn't like generally play, because Tron's usually all on making their own mana happen, and this Mono Black Coffers deck will have some more disruption elements.
Ooh, so this is interesting. So it's possible this mono black list is not the coffers list that I was expecting it to be. Because we're seeing Grief into Malakir Rebirth.
Yeah, buddy, that's not a stock list. One would say we tuned our own race car here.
So Andrew is going to be able to get busy with the Grief. This is an interesting trade when you go for the Grief plus Malakir Rebirth, because you're actually kind of trading 2 for 2 on cards with pitching the Fatal Push and the Malakir Rebirth, but then you're left with that resource of the Grief to start to deal damage. But in my experience with this, that kind of like 3 damage a turn clock it tends to be really, really slow in Modern. So we're definitely going to have to see what Andrew's follow-up is, as I think it's not terribly difficult to kind of draw out of this if you're on Nate Cat's side.
Yeah, I definitely would. I agree with you on all those points. I feel like this is an interesting matchup for the sequence that actually played out, where Push is pretty bad against 4-color creativity, and Grief is a much better card, and then having a turn 1 threat to attack into the creativity deck is actually pretty important for winning the game. So in principle, I agree with your analysis of it, but in this like specific instance, it's like, oh, that's actually pretty, like it played out pretty well for Andrew here.
Yeah, you definitely want to pressure the creativity deck. Another positive on Andrew's side is Grief has Menace. So sometimes the creativity deck can stabilize just by kind of throwing out some single Dwarven Mind tokens and blocking. But Nate's going to have to throw a couple of dwarves in front of this Grief to get it off the board, unless we've got something like a fire or...
All right, we get a Wrenn and 6 by Nate, so that basically guarantees that we're going to make land drops for a couple turns, and with this creativity deck, it basically means that you're going to have dwarves.
No, it does not. I'll give you that.
It's also kind of dependent. I mean, you can almost assume at this point that the creativity payoff is going to be Archon of Cruelty, as that's kind of like subsumed a lot of the other potential payoffs. But this is Modern Mondays, so you never really know what people are playing.
Also is interested, that was a decision point for Andrew to make, to decide to attack Wrenn and 6 or to attack Nate, not having any other pressure. I'm not sure you really care that much about Wrenn and 6 at this point.
I kind of agree. I think I may have also just kind of gone face here, as I think, unless I'm mistaken, you should be able to get Nate dead before the Wrenn and 6 comes online for Ultimate, which tends to be the problem.
All right, we have a pitched him to Turok here, or pitched a Turok dead canter, which is going to do a, which is going to do a him to Turok. Coffers, Chad asked if Coffers is in the deck. I'm assuming with Urborg that yes, Coffers is in the deck, but this might be a deck that's more built to maybe have a couple big payoff cards, but not solely around like maximizing
Those are your dice.
Cabal Coffers as early as possible.
+2 off of Turok's ability.
Yep.
Just one.
Yeah, just going to 12.
So Chas decided that Coffers, that the mono black deck is the hero deck. You know, both of these not super common meta decks. They're both in there fighting for that kind of tier 1.5 space. They can, either of these can kind of spike any given event.
I feel like creativity is pretty established at this point, so definitely not tier 1 all the time, but yeah, is in the pile of good cards in Archon realm of decks.
Plus and play this line.
Okay.
And this can be the thing about getting Wrens off the board, right? Right as you've spent a ton of potential damage and time getting Wren off the board, then another one pops onto the board. I believe Nate does have a Bolt in hand. I imagine that's going to get leveled towards the Turok. Okay. Was this, I imagine this was in response. Yeah, so all this is happening in response to the Voidwalker cast.
Oh, okay.
I'll go to 11.
I think we're likely going to see the Dwarven Mine here.
Trigger, make a dwarf. I'll just grab my
You have to have a pretty good reason on the creativity deck to be fetching for anything other than a Dwarven Mine once you get to the kind of like point where you've got your mana fix and you've got 3 mountains. There's usually only one basic mountain in the deck, so if you're fetching anything else untapped, you're likely going to be taking damage. And, you know, you're usually playing 4 Dwarven Mines, so it's fairly free to just kind of start tossing out creativity fodder / chump blockers.
It looks like Andrew is like locked in on making sure these Wrens don't stick around, which, and when Nate's at 11, I'm pretty incentivized just to attack that life total.
Yeah, the interesting thing with this, of course, is that the fetch lands that Wren is getting back, if you're attacking the life total, can become essentially useless until Wren ults if you're going for the player life total.
I'll plus get this Wooded Foothills back. Play.
And Travis is running out their chat because I think that the prismatic ending, in fact, ends up in the yard rather than exiled here because there's that difference between if it's damage, then the spell kind of would resolve and then the damage happens and then state-based effects are checked. But in this case, the spell resolution kills the creature, and so it's not actually exiled.
Let's go to Bounty.
Results.
Another one.
So Andrew has been keeping up the pressure here.
3 cards to show me. But I think you
Wow. Okay, this is an oldie here.
You're getting a blackmail.
It was printed in 8th. Barely made the cut. It was a reprint.
I trust you. Do you mind if I just call
Nope.
a judge?
Yep.
I just haven't seen it. Should
It's
I
more
don't
of a
even wanna
Pops card.
yell into the mic.
It's also a beautiful
Give my
blackmail.
guess.
Yeah,
Judge.
Andrew has great
You
taste
can also
in
Google it if you want to.
in
Yeah, if you
cards.
wanna just pull it up
But
or
this
something.
is
Haven't seen
if
this
you're
card
gonna
in
play
months.
blackmail, this is
It's
how you play it.
Blackmail.
All right, Nate's calling a judge because he's like, is this even in modern? That does not look like it's a modern. That's old bordered, and that's from Odyssey block.
All right, let's take a look. There's blackmail, and then let's take a look at the actual printing that we're playing. So was in fact printed in, what is this, 9th edition? And there is the OG printing from Onslaught.
So I'll
And I think that's braids, right?
Yes, I believe that is
What
correct.
line would you like? I've drawn a lot of them.
The character in blackmail.
Actually,
it looks.
I don't know.
Maybe?
Chat, is that braids? I think you're right, Trav.
Move to combat.
Sure looks like it. But,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
Okay, just gonna take this moment to point out that Andrews attacked Nate 3 times with a grief. So you know, I don't think maybe this upcoming turn grief potentially could have ultimated.
Actually,
but
that might have been the 4th time, Trav.
a 4th? Okay.
Yeah, because we've killed 2 Renin 6s, I believe, with griefs only, and they both had upticked.
Yeah.
So that would have been 4 total attacks.
Okay, so that would have been definitely a lethal.
Yeah.
Who knows the context of what would have happened, if other decisions were made. But
Well, yeah, because we might have been at a point in the game where the previous Ren would have been able to ult. So that would make things really, really awkward for Andrew had the other Ren been able to ult, because then creativity is like very much unlocked. And regardless of our analysis, Andrew's going to take game 1. So
Yeah, I know. Blackmail's a very strange.
You can't say I've seen that.
I kind of love that.
playing. I mean, especially that specific copy of Blackmail, absolutely gorgeous.
Is what, like a tier 5?
Probably close to there.
As much as I wish it would be.
Little generous.
All right, we're going to
Yeah.
sideboards. Let's see. What do we got over? What are we thinking about over here?
So looks like Nate's got the Iona tech. So you can always think about getting rid of some number, if not all of your Archons, if you feel like Iona's going to win the match. Nate is playing against mono black here. So Iona on black is a very tantalizing option. However, Archon's also pretty good here. I think I would absolutely be able to defend Nate's decision to side out some number of Archons, if not all of them, to toss Iona in there. It looks like we're actually leaving all of the Archons, and we're just putting in 2 Veils and 1 Iona.
So the way damage works, it's like kind of the similar way Death Shadow.
What do you think about Iona? And do you think you would want to make sure you hit Iona, or do you think you're okay leaving 4 Archons and an Iona and just kind of like, come what may, if you hit the Iona, so be it?
So it's really hard for me to separate experiential knowledge and things as opposed to like what you should do in a theoretical way. I've just been burned so many times with decks where if you draw the 1 card that then you can't win. And so yeah, there's really not, I think if you just sideboard Iona in and there's not like an Emrakul, there's no real way to like get it back in the deck. And then it's casting that card, it's gonna take some doing. So I like siding it in as like, maybe this is gonna be if I'm gonna creativity for like multiple instances, you might hit it. It's great, but I don't think you just want to kneecap yourself for that being a card that you draw and then you just forfeit the game basically.
Should be castable in that I know that we saw at least 2 white sources from Nate's side. We did not see Prismari Command, but oftentimes the deck does have the ability to create some number of treasures with the Prismari Command, which ultimately would allow you to cast Iona if it got to that point. But I agree with you. I think putting in just the single Iona and taking out all of the Archons is quite risky. As part of the power of Archons in general is that you can you don't really want a creativity for 1 a lot of the time. You're really trying to hit. 2 is kind of your like best, your great break point, your doable break point, excuse me, and then obviously anything more than 2, you're probably just running away with the game at that point, but you may already be kind of ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of times if you creativity for 1 because you're targeting what you're sacrificing, you can get kind of blown out by 1 removal spell, where when casting creativity for 2, you're kind of insulate yourself to getting blown out. And it looks like we have a mulligan for Nate's. Andrew likes the 7.
It's always going to make you nervous on creativity side because you've literally been essentially grief Malakir Rebirth game 1. So this is one of those matchups where anytime you're playing against black, the mulligans feel bad because you're like, I will keep like a wide range of hands against black discard decks because you just want a critical mass of cards, period.
Better 6.
That one was pretty close. The first one was, but
Multiple Rens. Oh, we do have the Emrakul in the deck. Okay.
Oh no, this one's much
I did not see that sided in.
I did not either.
That
So
might just be a spicy 1 of there.
well, this might not be an Archon version.
Oh, you're right. I also didn't get a good look at Nate digging through the deck. So it could be it could be a Emrakul
Sarah's Emissary.
Sarah's Emissary package.
Yeah, kind of like, it's so funny. It feels like old tech now, but it's like it hasn't been gone for that long. It's just that Archon has kind of like subsumed that in a lot of ways. But as a 2-card package, Emrakul and Sarah's Emissary takes care of a lot of bases. And Sarah's Emissary particularly is like very good against Hammer. And we do have quite a contingent of Hammer players, it feels like, at this store at any given night.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more all in. Where if you resolve a creativity and get Archon, you're just getting like a huge amount of advantage from that. And if you resolve it, like maybe just for one, and you hit an Emrakul, you can get Solituded. Or there's just not, it's not as sure that you're going to be getting value out of that, and it's more polarized. But it looks like we do have the turn 1 Grief. Are we going to get the Rebirth? No.
And I don't have a way to bounce it back, so.
We're 2 for 1ing ourselves for Andrew, and we're taking the creativity, leaving Nate with lands and a Ren, which that is a very interesting. What would you have taken if you're in Andrew's situation? If there's just lands, a Ren, and a creativity. I'm almost taking the Ren there.
It so depends on what Andrew has in hand here. Yeah, it just really, like, obviously if you take the Ren, you're not really hamstringing Nate very much. These mono black decks do tend to play some number of Blood Chief's Thirst, which would be a very like clean answer to this Ren.
Okay.
I think if I had Blood Chief's Thirst in hand, then it would be an easy decision. I think creativity 100%. We'll have to kind of see what Andrew plays here. The other potential option that could be good is just getting a Voidwalker out there. Could kind of shut down Ren's shenanigans pretty quickly.
That makes sense. Yeah, I could definitely see. It feels like we're casting a 2-mana spell, Voidwalker. High potentiality for that one. What other 2-mana spell do you think we could be throwing down?
I no idea, but looks like Voidwalker is the play.
And we do have the Emrakul in hand for Nate.
You do not want to let that get discarded at this moment.
Oh my gosh.
That is not where you want to be. So you're very much hoping that Andrew doesn't hit you with some sort of discard spell that's going to get that Emrakul in the yard, because that is curtains.
Wow. Oh boy. You know, I love Modern Mondays. And I'm going to put my chips on the table for fun. And as much as I don't like to favor one player over the other, I like favoring situations and outcomes, and I'm really hoping for the outcome of Voidwalker to cast an Emrakul.
Yeah, because you better bet that's a cast trigger when you sack Voidwalker. You get the Emrakul cast trigger to get another turn, so you are rumbling in for 6 permanents and a lot of damage.
The extra 1 is usually not a big deal.
Love Andrew's choice of basics. You know, it feels like, I honestly feel like I'm in for a treat every time I watch a match without snow basics. No hate on snow basics. I play them in a number of decks, especially if you're playing a Ragavan deck. But it is very nice to see some old border. I believe that's Odyssey foil swamp.
Do love old border foils. I think my favorite, if I'm going to pick a favorite foiled basic land, probably going to be the 7th edition basics, or the arena promos that are like the beta arts, but then also.
I mean,
foils.
7th is like a huge flex. Like if you're running 7th foil basics, you're just flexing, because it is so funny that is like, I believe, the only set in Magic history where the whole set's white border except for the foils.
Yeah.
Like what an odd thing to do for that set.
Yeah, I don't want to blow it up because I try to pick them up whenever I can, but 7th foil basics are not that expensive.
Really?
Yeah, they're like $2 to $7.
Wow, that is a surprise. There's some good basics in there too.
Hot finance tips from Portland Paper here.
Oh, 8th and 9th also were black border. Okay, well, but 7th was old border, right? So 8th and 9th
Correct.
got black border, but they weren't old border, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a Nykthos here. Okay, I saw,
Oh boy, Nate does not even want to see the. Nate does not want to see the Emrakul cast.
Wouldn't give it to us. Would not give it to us.
That is brutal.